Christmas and a Happy New Year in 2026, and it'll be our 250th anniversary. My name is Mr. Cornelius Lawson White Jr. I live at 3638 10th Street in Alexandria, Louisiana. My area code is 71302. My phone number is area code 318-446-6934. 24/7 text. You can reach me anytime. On this redistricting and stuff, and I see what we can comment on. I just wish there were some of the black councilmen here too. I don't see any of them here because I agree with what they had voted for, because that was the original district lines that the Rapides Area Planning Commission had put before us. It seems like every time, you know, somebody puts something before us, and I don't know how many times they've moved, you know, have they ever had any problems with the district lines and stuff? And you vote one way one time, then you vote another way the next time. There needs to be some type of consistency with all this stuff. And I wish more people would participate, but I don't know why people won't come out. They'll come out against carbon capture and then other things. But this is voting. This is the most serious thing. That's what our foundation is founded on, and the founding fathers, is the right to vote. And I wish I could have been here yesterday, but something held me up. But like I said, I think that the way the 4 councilmen voted last Tuesday, it needs to stay that way. I believe the mayor can veto it, and then it'll take 5. So I don't know if any of the other councilmen will vote with the black councilmen, but I would appreciate if they would, like I said, to maintain what we've always done. Thank you, sir. God bless America, and God bless Alexandria, Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
My name is Councilwoman Lizzie Felter. Today I wanted to summarize some of the things that I said yesterday regarding the specific controversies regarding the ordinance 129-2025. Yesterday we talked a lot about if the ordinance would fail to consider cultural and other common ties, and whether it would allow candidates to pick voters instead of voters electing candidates. So the answer to both questions is yes. And I'm asking the mayor to utilize his veto power to stop council members from taking the power to select council persons from District 4 residents. One of the questions at hand is if the council made genuine efforts to maintain continuity, neighborhood continuity. The Porter-Davidson map the council voted to return to last week divides some of our city's most historic neighborhoods. The Garden District neighborhood, the City Park neighborhood, and the South Alexandria neighborhood are split between 2 council districts. In effect, it's robbing them of their voice, their united voice, to advocate for their needs with a single council person. The Felter map, the map used in the 2024 election, unites all 3 neighborhoods in a common council district. It's the only map that actually preserves the communities of interest. The Porter-Davidson map actually dismantles them. So that's really important to point out. As it was said yesterday, if both maps are compliant with the Voting Rights Act, as they are, the most critical question of all is, does the map the council voted to return to, the Porter-Davidson map, does it allow candidates to pick voters instead of voters electing candidates? Every time we talk about this, it becomes clear how confused people are about this and how much misinformation there is regarding this issue. So, when we look at the timeline, when the Porter-Davidson map was created in 2022. On July 20th, 2022, Tom Spencer and I qualified for the District 4 election based on those existing lines. On September 6, 2022, after we had already qualified, the council adopted new maps that specifically drew us out of our district. On November 8th, 2022, despite those lines, the voters of District 4 elected me with 64% of the vote. So the 2022 maps rendered the election irrelevant before a single vote was cast. It created a legal impossibility where, regardless of who won, the city council would be forced to redraw the lines because the map excluded the very candidates who they were choosing between. Reverting to that map now effectively tells 64% of District 4 voters that their choice didn't matter. It's the definition of politicians picking their voters and politicians choosing the outcome of an election before it even happens. So we must be honest about the aims of the Porter-Davidson map. It was not drawn for compactness. It was not drawn for compliance. It was drawn as an act of political retaliation. Former council members Catherine Davidson and Gerber Porter weaponized the redistricting process to keep candidates that didn't support their agenda off the council. They drew the map where both candidates, myself and Mr. Spencer, would now be out of the district. This ordinance is not a correction. It's the reinstatement of an agenda that the voters of Alexandria already rejected at the ballot box. So, finally, the other issue that I want to address is the issue of disenfranchisement. The Felter maps were enacted before an election took place. So there was no election held under the Porter-Davidson maps. Since then, we've had an election under the Felter maps. So if we revert to the Porter-Davidson maps now, we're creating a 6-year lockout for some voters. These are citizens who voted in 22, who, because of the shift, will be moved into districts where they cannot vote again until 2028. It's effectively stripping them of their right to vote for a representative for a full 6 years. So that's a dilution of voting power and a violation of the principles of fair representation. The Felter maps are legal. The Felter maps are compliant. They respect the one person, one vote standard, and most importantly, they respect the results of the election. I want to ask why the council is prioritizing the revival of an inferior map over the clear mandate of the people. There's no legal reason to return to the Porter-Davidson map. The only outcome of doing so is to silence 64% of District 4 residents who already made their choice. I ask you, Mayor, to use your veto to stop this, protect the neighborhoods, protect the integrity of the election, and ensure that Alexandria, the voters, choose their representatives, not the other way around. Thank you.
Will you take questions from council members?
Sure.
Is there any council member have questions?
Okay.
So, I got a question also. You're not a council person.
It's a council member question.
Mr. Felter, so there's never been an election with the Gerber Porter?
No, there has never been an election held with the Gerber Porter maps, but there has been an election held under the Felter maps in 2024.
So if we change it back the other way, there'll be a lot of confusion on what district people are in.
Yes.
Right now, there's no confusion because they've already voted once in that district, right?
I agree with that, yes.
State what his question was. It may not be.
His question was that if we change it back now that an election has been held, would there be voter confusion? And I said that I agree with him on that statement, that there would be voter confusion if you revert back to the 2022 maps that were never used in an election. Mr. Fowler, did you have any? Okay.
All right. Thank you for the comments. We'll close this out. We've had the opportunity for 2 days on this. We submitted, or have not submitted yet, but will submit for anybody that wants to place something in the record. We will submit that to the council's records on this. I will again go over that I've received 40 or so letters in support of the original, or the 37-2024, what would be called the Felter map. I will take note that at the 4 public hearings held by the council, there was opposition to the Felter map in support of the Davidson Porter maps that were readopted by vote a few days ago or last week. I will take note that Mr. Cornelius White was here today in person to support the Davidson Porter map and not the Felter map. I will also make sure the record is clear that his support of that is he feels that the council has voted in majority to do that, and he feels that is the better map. He also made note of a couple of other items, which is what has happened in the past that kind of led this to be a little different, and I'll address those because I think that's important to put in the record. I think those are legitimate concerns to have. I would say that in talking with council members, Mr. Fowler would be the dean of those members. This has always been the case, that council members go and talk about it. They might have done it in the back in the day. They might have done it by going to RAPC, but the council decides the districts, not the RAPC. The RAPC is an information provider. They have the software. They put all the stuff together. They show how to comply with one person, one vote. But council members can then go and, I want more of this, I want more of that. And they just have to deal with each council person's desire to politically have their district the way they want and make them ultimately comply with one person, one vote, Reynolds v. Sims or Baker v. Carr, which is the standard. If there's a Voting Rights Act violation, then that can affect their decisions. At least it could. We'll see what the U.S. Supreme Court is doing now. They're taking some of those up. But historically, since the Voting Rights Act, even if council members politically wanted it one way, they would not necessarily be entitled to that if it violated the Voting Rights Act. There were a number of ways to have that checked. A lawsuit could be filed, Attorney General compliance. There were pre-clearance compliances in some cases where you had to go ahead of time if you were a place that had historical problems or discrimination. In this case, Mr. White, there were 2 lawsuits filed, one including a voting rights allegation in federal court filed by Mr. Malcolm Lawberdane. It was dismissed. So that issue was dismissed in terms of the case. It is not included in the state case that still pens. The state case is solely about whether there's charter compliance, and that issue is still before the court. The charter compliance issue, which is interesting, is made more problematic in that from the testimony yesterday and the evidence that we see, it's moot because they didn't comply with even it being on time anyway. So it's as though that provision, before I was here, before Ms. Felter, or any of the new folks that ran, Gary or anyone, it wouldn't apply anyway because they didn't submit it a year before the biennial census, first primary race after the biennial census anyway. So that whole issue is probably, I think, Mr. Guest, moot from that standpoint, but we'll see. So that still pens in state court. Regardless of whether the Supreme Court is today, and it would depend if the Supreme Court orders that race as any factor, whether predominant or not, can no longer be considered, and is not, it's okay to just politically do maps without regard. That'll be something the U.S. Supreme Court has to say before it would be binding on any of the people here. Personally, if there were pending that outcome, any voting rights allegations, I would take that. That would be the super. You'd have to take that into not only into consideration. I would not tolerate that. So there's no evidence of it, and the person that filed it dismissed it, and there's not. As a matter of fact, the Felter map increases African American populace in the District 3 Davidson Port. So it actually adds there, it doesn't take away. So I don't think you're going to get to a Voting Rights Act. The attorneys involved in this all know that, both sides. So with the Voting Rights Act out, this becomes a political decision that the council is generally given the deference to make. They have voted 4-3 in favor of this. It overturns what has already been run in once, the Felter map, and so that is what's before this body. That once the council votes, as they did last week, it leaves them and goes to the mayor. And I've had these 2 days to seriously consider if there were any VRA issues or one person, one vote issues. Today was reserved, and I appreciate, Mr. White, you stuck definitely to the agenda and made, I thought, salient comments, important things. And whether everybody agrees with you or not, you not only have the right to say it, I thought your comments were on point. Today's are about contiguity, compactness, preservation of precincts, preservation of communities of interest. On the communities of interest and contiguity, I've received a lot of letters, and what I've received are people who live in the district who want to see that district remain as it was, the Garden District largely intact, and so I understand that position. won't get into my outreach to other council members who are not here. I will say that I have, in that I respect all of their decisions and understand. I respect certainly Ms. Perry's decision to want to do this. I have given the opportunity to understand why, or if allegations of unfairness, et cetera, what that is. I can only go by the record that's presented, but I will continue to, just because we close it out here doesn't mean that I'm not available to listen to more from council members. Lastly, Mr. White, in direct response to your comments, which again I thought were on point, it's not only that council members can always do it this way and have, it's normal for congressmen, legislators, and local officials in the legislative branch to go and talk about how they want to see their district. Obviously, that's something they have a keen interest in doing. When it becomes impermissible, or at least in the past, before this cycle of the Supreme Court, would be if it uses impermissible things to do it, race being one. There are other things outside of that. It can be that it's not compact or contiguous, so you're going and capturing voters that you think are only friendly to you and moving around and doing it, and so a district doesn't have an even shape. It's all over the place. That's not the case, I think, with any of the maps here. I would note that the Felter proposition is the only one that, according to the testimony, and I'm checking each fact that was said yesterday and each fact that was said at the hearings by the council, according to what's been presented, the Felter plan does not split a single precinct. And as I understand it, Mr. Gist, neither does the Davidson Porter plan, which is a good thing, because that's one of the things that the legislature still can tell you they don't want to see happen, and that makes sense. So, I have received your opposition to any change or support for the current legislation that's in place by 4-3 vote. I note that there were, I don't know how many by count, but it is in the record of how many people were here on both meetings in support of the Davidson Porter plan. So the council, it is normal, Mr. White and everybody, to go talk to RAPC. That's not an abnormal thing. RAPC has a duty to minimize the politics, not be influenced by what someone says they want. But you can imagine the tough job that Matt or anybody would have if every day a new member comes in and says, this is how I want to see it. They're going to have to deal with that. It's no different than in the legislature. All those guys will have to do that too. They have groups that come in, and you can imagine at the legislative level, Mr. White, it's even more political in some ways, I guess. You might say maybe local politics is the most political, but over there, then if you're on the right committee, if you're in charge of that, there's a lot of power in how redistricting occurs. And remember, the state legislature also does the congressional districts, right? So just so everyone knows legally, there is no federal prohibition in federal law that prohibits redistricting more than once in a census period, and there's no state law that prohibits it either. The charter says that it shall happen once, and so the question was whether that means it can only happen once, or is just a limit on it must happen once. What I'm trying to explain to everybody is they didn't meet the once anyway, and so that whole provision wouldn't really be applicable. The record is not clear on fault in that regard, other than Mr. Gist would say, I think more than just anecdotally, I think he'd say that he has some evidence, either in writing or with knowledge of publications, that because of COVID, there was a several month delay.
At least 10.
At least 10-month delay. Ms. Felter would say, obviously, as she did yesterday, she had no fault in it. She wasn't in a position to do anything either way. I'm sure the council would say that whatever time they took that went beyond that they needed, maybe because of the COVID issue, I don't have any way to investigate the truth of that. It would be a large expenditure of time that would not change the fact that it wasn't met. So it would just be looking to do that to cast blame where it wouldn't matter. So with that, That'll be submitted. I will make sure anything that's in the record is there. I will keep the record open for written. Anybody that wants to give me something in writing to put in the record of their opposition or support, I will continue to take through tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. With that, I'm going to move my agenda to some State of the City Reignite discussion and let everybody know that our Reignite projects are moving along, that we have gone into a pretty hard due diligence period for those projects. By due diligence, I mean we start comparing, Mr. Fowler and others, what the private sector says it will try to deliver in comparison to what we can deliver in the public sector. It's important to remember this is a public-private partnership, or P3 as people call it. Those public-private partnerships have to be where the public gets a commensurate value for anything it does. And so the way those typically are structured is we have to make sure that whatever we get from them is done in a way that it can be enforced. You can imagine if the public were always to advance its component first, maybe the private sector doesn't then do all of its deliverables, the taxpayer would be holding the bag, if you will. I noted that many of you caught a few weeks ago when we did the LSUA agreement, not a few weeks ago, last week. Mr. White, you did yourself catch it, that we structured it in a way that before LSUA would get the $3 million, even though it's public to public, so it's a public-public partnership, they don't get it until they meet certain deliverables and milestones so that we can ensure our money is never in a project as a bridge to nowhere, as money that becomes a sunk cost because they're not doing it. And so I explained then, and I just want to make sure the council understands, the reason we can capture that by 50%, Mr. Fowler and others, is simple. The state, when you go through the capital outlay process and move from priorities 5 through 2 to a 1, which is what you have to be to get the real money, would at 50% of that project, they'll be all in at that point. So even if part is in 1 now, I'll guess 14 to 16 million, something like that. This is a $40 million project downtown. It's huge. And it offers the opportunity for nurses and all of these allied health people to be in the city. So what Ms. McGill's and all of our team did was put in those deliverables, Mr. White, if you will, that we want to see you make bona fide efforts to employ people here. We want to see you make bona fide efforts that nurses and others must stay in the area. Those kinds of things. But most importantly, our biggest check and balance on advancing the money is we're last in money. So all the private sector money and others come in before us so that our public fisc is protected. We also have what's called a fiscal funding clause, Mr. Fowler, in all sets of it. So does the state. The city knows from times past that when you deal with any public body, the jury has them too, if they have a fiscal funding clause, that is a fancy term, set of 2 words that simply, or 3 words, it means this. If they decide not to legislatively appropriate the money, you can't get it, because you can't seize a fire truck, you can't seize a police car, you can't seize parish assets. And so if there's no payment on it, you're really left in a bad situation. But we have the same thing with the state. If the state legislature decided by veto of the governor or lack of appropriation by the legislature to not fund that project, and we had given our $3 million up front first, we wouldn't get it back, and we'd be out. So we're going last in, sort of last out into the project. And you might say, well, why not wait till then? Because you have to have the money in to get it there. But at 50% of that project, because of the way capital outlay works, they'll be on their way. So I think we had 3 milestone points, Ms. McGills, if you'll help me by memory. The first is the true groundbreaking. Number 2 is the engineer architect report on what?
20%
On
completion.
20% completion, and they'll have to do a compliance report that says it. And our last amount of $3 million would go in at 50% certification of the project. I elected to do a letter of commitment with it, so it has a couple of components to it to make sure that we're protected. And that's how it's set up. I have instructed finance Mr. Villard, Ms. Felter, Mr. Fowler, Ms. Perry, and others, I have instructed our finance division to place those in increments of $500,000, $500,000 apiece in CDs, pretty short term, so we don't take a penalty. But that shows that the funds are segregated and available for the project, if that makes sense. It tells the world, including LSU, big LSU in the state, our funds are ready to go. The reason that's important is all the other money that went into the foundation for LSU has to be cash up front. You can't get state money if you don't show your local matches all the way in. Well, the city doesn't want to put $3 million in a foundation or we can't do that. So our money is certified by our cooperative endeavor, by signing that contract as we do with other projects. So that's all done. I bring that up because I think it's going to be one of the more important things that you guys have voted on and done in years. I want to thank the staff, Kay, Trey, and so many others who have helped make this happen, Mr. Ranson as well. This is going to be a big deal, as they say, for not just downtown to have that other campus, but if you recall, we did $3 million, we did for CLTCC. A little bit different structure, but same result. And look at the building and the campus there. Now you're going to have LSUA down here in the city, and those big letters will face the interstate from all directions. It's going to look good. It's going to be a statement. And more than that, the look of it, if you will, more than that is it's going to be giving jobs to students and people who need them. There'll be jobs in the healthcare sector. There'll be jobs that are upwardly mobile, meaning you can tend to be educated in one and make a move up if you want to. And it'll put them in the sort of the chain of being in the education system where there are other opportunities to move laterally into other things. I'm thankful to Paul Carell and the leadership over there for moving this. If any of you have studied some of the numbers that they have, the amount of students and all, you're going to see that this was really well supported. They're growing fast. Their campus, even with online growth, remember all those dollars still go to campus for infrastructure, so that grows that campus no matter what. And having them be downtown is a great thing. I think they're going to have other expansion that you guys will see in the near future of that campus, from housing to other opportunities. And at some point, the vision would be that the city captures that and they're in the city at the end of the day. And that would be a personal goal that I hope that everyone sees happen. On the projects with Reignite, there are quite a few. I want to make sure that people are cautioned not to focus only on the mall, because it gives the wrong impression if people think that the city is going to own or do the retail of the mall. That's not at all how that works. With the public partnership with LSUA, of course, will own its building. It'll be operated by the state through the school system. I assume the board of supervisors, the big board in Baton Rouge, and managed here by LSUA. With regard to the mall, the idea is that we create public infrastructure around it. So these are pieces of infrastructure that the public, you, would ultimately own and maintain in perpetuity. But by taking over some of the never to be used again infrastructure there, that would be dead infrastructure, that allows the mall to quit spending money on that, not focus on that, and reinvest in the mall. So think about what we just went over about LSUA. We know our deliverables there. We have to have deliverables here. And they have to even be more robust because you're partnering with the private sector. There's a lot of legislation in place that lets a city and a LSUA, because it's a public institution, partner just because, meaning it's called joint service. The city is not formed for education. We have a school board for that. We have higher ed. But we're allowed specifically to partner for education with good reason. It's part of what makes a city a city. So with this, it's a little different. You're talking about a lot of retail that was there. I would bring everybody's attention again to a very simple and stark fact that retail at a mall, as we grew up seeing at a mall, does not exist anymore. People order their products on their phone, and people use Amazon and all of those things. Even for stores with bricks and mortar, if you're talking about Target, people order their order ahead of time. and then they go pull up, and that order is brought out. So all of that sort of what they call omni-channel shopping, where you have an app and you can program what you're going to get and have it essentially related or brought to you, would be part of this. It is my opinion that the mall would have to really rethink the retail as it currently is. A lot of that would not be best there. They're gonna have to, I think, pivot toward non-retail or non-traditional retail. What do I mean? Healthcare components. There could be educational, LSUA and other components in the mall. I think Cabrini and Rapides need to have some interest of healthcare components in the mall. They do, which is one of the reasons we're doing this and why it's indicated as a proper thing. We also think that a children's learning institution and museum as an anchor would be critical. That could mean going after that Sears building part that everyone's had so much trouble with, or it could mean building something new on the current footprint. I would just ask all of you to remember that the current footprint of the mall is a lot of parking lot that, because of the way we shop now, will never be used again. There will never be the need for that for strictly parking at the mall. There won't be. They would say that. It's not a mayor thing saying that. I've found that. The mall would admit that and say it. But you can Google this. You can go on ChatGPT. You can see all the mall reuses and how they do it. We're right in the heart of doing that, and I think we've got some unique opportunities to make this work. So the types of incentives that we would provide would be doing things on that footprint that help support the mall, doing things in the corridor from security and public safety to other things, helping sponsor and partner with healthcare aspects, giving people incentives from utility items and others to add capital expenditures to other properties. So I want you to remember, it's not just the mall. Think of all around the mall, or Books A Million, and all those other shops and stores, or they're all going to be part of this aspect of the program and Reignite. We have started already, so that's just the sort of mall retail partnering that has a lot of work to go. They have to do a lot of what they're going to do to match what we would do. Let me tell you some things that we're doing now that are purely public. The Masonic Court Sports, which is down by Bolton, is ready to go, and so that's going to start happening now. The council has done its part. Bolton High School. So, what was the name, Elena, of that original?
Washington Way.
Washington Way. So, does anyone know the history? Was it, who was the what Washington was it named for? Y'all think it's the president, not another? Okay. So internally, there was a big battle about this, about whether we should call it that again. Nobody has heard that moniker for it in a long time, but maybe someone else can better explain it. So if you think where the fire station is, there's a property that's right there between Bolton High School, the fire station, and Masonic. That's the property we're talking about redoing. Ms. Corley, what sports would be located there? We call it Masonic Court Sports. What courts?
6 pickleball courts,
6 pickleball courts,
a basketball court,
basketball,
4 cornhole sets,
4 cornhole sets,
2 ping pong tables,
ping pong,
4 square,
4 square,
and hopscotch.
and hopscotch. We've seen some preliminary designs looking pretty good. Now, back to the mall, imagine that they would want, the first thing they said was, don't do that. Because that's some of the stuff you're challenging us to turn the mall into, a big rec center with lots of inside, you could have inside baseball, golf, all of those things. And what our answer to that was is, we won't compete with you on anything that you show you're gonna do and would be better suited to do. But I can assure you that the outside pickleball and you doing inside, you'll be fine. The capacity and the need and the drive is there, that's not gonna be an issue. But that brings up a good point. If someone were to ask us, council persons, to incentivize something that allowed a new sporting center in the mall that was focused on gun sales and all the stuff at Security Sporting Goods, we have to think about those things. We don't want government money incentivizing against a long-term, already local business, Mr. White. So we would not necessarily promote or be involved in incentives that create competition against existing business, especially if the new business is owned outside of here, is some, flagged company that wants to come in and all of their main money is in another state while our local people's money is here in this city. So those are the kind of decisions that the council and others will have to be very careful about, that you have to do right, that you have to get right. Also, starting now is the Handiworks building, so that's right across from Manor House in that corner by the park. That building is going to be a public building with a public safety component to go out and protect that corridor, and also for some other security work that will be a training center for SWAT and others. Next, right now, I don't know if you guys realize this on the council, but the Masonic softening project is happening now too. So that second time, Clifford, we had one redo of Masonic, this will be the second. So Masonic is going to be changing to soften, to participate in all this. And then we also, as part of Reignite citywide, we're also doing our playground project to redo the playgrounds of the city. The next round will be more focused on how this big mall park occurs, and I think it's fair to say that a big part of the next round is going to be looking at the ballpark and Bringhurst Ball, and really thinking about how to reimagine that and re-envision it. We have all the information of what Bringhurst was to the bolt, if you will, of how it originally was. The aim would be to rebuild it exactly to that level, and then think about, though, the field being something that is multi-purpose. So could play baseball, could do other sports on, could be a outside concert venue along with Big Island and other parks. So there's a lot of opportunity there at Bringhurst. And I think you're going to get a lot of opportunity increase in the city, Mr. Fowler, because I think you're going to see a lot of old baseball fans coming out of the woodwork to be part of this. I've already been contacted many times on it in general, both angry and happy. Angry that it's in the shape it's in, happy to hear something is happening. But by people who want, really, I think, to start a legitimate ACES history museum as part of this. It's not before my time, but I was too young to see it in its heyday. This was a big part of our city. It's a big part of the history here. And so I think there could be some opportunities there, and I think there could be some private sponsorship money there to see that happen. So I look forward to that. That's a status of those Reignite projects, so you can see they are actually moving quickly. Part of that is the bond that we will be taking up with you guys to talk about. The bond is set up to be part of the retirement of the Spark bonds, and the aim would be that it not change the note on your car, if you will, right? So you'd be getting the new car, no change in note, no new money down. And you would be continuing those same opportunities to move forward. And that's really where we are on it, and it's moving along well. Last part of that report is pretty simple. Tomorrow, CSRS will be here. We'll be meeting on that first set of scopes and things to do that we sent down to you guys a few weeks back, that second due diligence. We're actually going to be working with them. Can't have all of you at once because of your quorum rules, but if you want to call me individually about a time, or you want to talk to anybody about it, let us know. Call Mr. Ranson, and we'll let you know. We're starting our meeting at 1:30. We'll be making some announcements about that. I'm going to be asking a community leader to be the general chair of the Reignite program. It will not be a city employee. It won't be a city related person, and this person has agreed to serve and do that. I think it's important to have a community person lead it. We'll be talking about that at some point tomorrow, but I've made a decision on who that would be. We also put in the due diligence sheet that we sent you guys that we need some help in forming out that committee for those areas. There'd be some obvious players that I'd want to appoint to it, hospital representative, Mr. Villard, and others, but we really need some citizens that are directly involved, invested in that area that would help and serve. We need to make sure that the things we're programming help everybody. And we need to remind people this is not a prop up for the mall. The mall's got to change its game and fit what we're trying to do to make all of this work. So all in all, that's all some good news with Reignite. I think that it's going to be a very important project. The bond would not require any new taxes. It doesn't require even a renewal of anything except the current one it's based on, not the one that would be coming up. That's programmed in it that way for a reason, so that it removes controversy there, but allows you to program capital dollars forward in the form of that note. If the council chooses not to do it, that is the council's prerogative. You will ultimately have that, but we hope that you will see what we present is an incredible opportunity. I have hired Kel Bonton and his folks to do a rendition of what it looks like now and will look like, so you can imagine. We've done some flyovers of the current corridor, so you have drones go out, fly and film it, and then they'll create, CSRS, from Kel's work, they will create what it could look like in the future. And it's going to be realistic, and it'll be something to see. Kel is also going to be doing some other long-form work for us about the Reignite projects. Reignite is not obviously the only set of capital projects. You have a lot of other ones going on that all of you know about in priority, but just to, insofar as state of the city, the big ones would be Reignite, which I've just spent a good amount of time going over, and in other briefings. The LSUA Allied Health would be the other big one. And we've got a few more coming up. So those two would be two flagship projects that are, I would call, city-changing, game-changing projects that offer also work opportunities. Before the end of the year, I'll give the formal report on sales tax and everything else. You'll get a good appreciation of where we stand and where we're going. I appreciate your time today. I know that I will see everybody. It's only December 9th, a few more times before the end of the year, but for those of you I won't, Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year, and look forward to a happy holiday period. One more, Ms. Fowler, and then I'll answer your question. So we're also going to be announcing some opportunities in public safety partnering, and I just want to put it out there so people can start thinking about it. We will issue some form of I don't know how to say this straight, a non-technical RFQ. So RFQ means request for qualifications. So this would not be in a technical sense like for an engineer or others. We want to seek folks out for some violence interrupters, violence disruptors, people in the community that would come in and partner. So that's people who are affected by violence, have been affected by violence, without a perfect way to say it, we want folks that are on our streets, in our communities, to be partnering, not hiring some firm from out of town to come in and be a consultant and tell you this is how we do it. There are about 10 items that I've been outlining of focus deterrence and things that we do. And 7 of them, I think we're in a good place. There are 3 others that I've added, and the violence interruption is one of them. A second one in these 3 to add would be a center for engaging with, following up on, and then following through with victims of severe violence. There is a lot of material out in the world right now and study that shows that the more you engage as a community with the victims of violence, it provides new and better opportunities. That can sound, well, how would that work? But some of them are pretty intuitive that you would just guess. One, you could be involved with families that creates a non-street justice revenge form. So you get forgiveness. You get people working on building trust back with both law enforcement and others in the community to avoid those kinds of problems. There are others. One is the moral compulsion to be involved with victims in city violence and see what services you can provide. And three, because of those first two, those persons often have a way of then engaging in others that could help and be preventive down the road of new violence. Because unfortunately, people who are victims of violence tend to be, statistically, makes sense, around and at risk for future violence. So not just domestically, but in general, that's the case. So we're going to be reaching out for that, and that's going to be opportunities for people to come forward and really help. There are lots of NGOs that exist. There are lots of Stop the Violence, and I know that's a true name of at least one or two groups. So I don't mean it about any particular group. I mean those types of organizations that would be known as Stop the Violence organizations. I'm not naming one that's called that. There'll be opportunities there, but what we really need is some direct partnership with people affected and people who have the ability to be go-betweens and perhaps speak to folks that would normally not talk to law enforcement. And so that opportunity is going to be coming out before the end of the year, all things if they go right, and I hope people will be encouraged to do that. I'll be meeting with some of those folks directly because I think it's what you need to do, but there will be others on the team that will meet. It doesn't have to always be comfortable, and it's not going to be for other staff members. Just so you know, you might get an earful about a lot of things in those meetings, so people are going to need to be open to that and understand that. People have very strong feelings. People are very emotional about being victims. For APD and my partners there, as all of you know, if things are unsolved, families are, there's a lot of pressure about that. I was given data today about, at least on the homicide side, where we are on those solve rates, and they look great, but there's a whole bunch of things that aren't as solved. So people who are victims of burglaries, property crimes, all those things, if they're not at the same level, people remain victimized, if you will. They feel victimized, and sometimes if they're told the wrong thing, if all of us don't do it the right way at our best, or if anyone says the worst statement you can make, and I hope I've rooted that out from anybody on either in APD or here at the administration, to say, oh, well, that's a property crime, we got to focus on something else. I hope we're not telling people that ever in a dispatch or other sense, because that really is not the right thing to tell somebody who's a victim. And just to remind all of you, whether it's property crime all the way to the most serious crimes, there's a relationship in this. And part of that relationship means that if you're a continued victim of property crimes and other things, you are going to be more likely, this isn't a perfect statement, but more likely to be a victim of more serious crimes. And so finding out from victims what they're going through in those connections is going to be a big help. So you may say, well, that's all great. Well, let's do it. Why are we doing it? Well, here's the challenge. Our community does not always have the trust to do it, meaning people are not willing to go to law enforcement and tell them certain things. Many reasons for that. The most obvious, all of you know. What do you think the most obvious one is? Starts with an R. Retaliation would be the first one that people would be concerned about, but it's not the only one. There can also just be a breach of trust between citizen and law enforcement, or citizen and government in general. And so we've got to work to build that. And one of the ways you do that is you don't assume that you can do it. So I can't assume I can break through that. You can't assume that you have the answers. Unfortunately, guys, not even you guys can always assume you can break through it. Some of you are way better at it than others. That's a good thing. But some of it needs to be broken through by people who are in the community, or victims of the violence themselves, or have the know-how to do it. And that's going to call for a new openness in how you do things. It's also going to call for dealing with people who may have a record, who you may know from the past did something that, oh, well, you can't talk to that person, they did this. That's not how it's going to work. And that's not how it can work if we're going to make some of the breakthroughs that we have to make. So I hope you'll be open to that with me as we go through this. The other things about focused deterrence and use of a lot of technology, we're going to continue. We're going to have some other ideas on that, but if focused deterrence only means to someone singling out one neighborhood and doing whatever, that's not what it means. And that's not the only thing it can be. It means focusing on the things that change community violence, change community crime and how it occurs. So we get in a lot of trouble using terms. You may say focused deterrence because you read it in the best practice manual, but to the other person hearing it, they may hear a different term or think it means something else. Even the broken windows theory that enjoyed decades of understanding became sort of a negative to some people saying it. So I'm not going to get caught on the terms. I'm going to try to explain always what I mean by it. And if the term is different to somebody, I'm absolutely always open to using a different way to say it. But here what I mean is the community has to own this and get in it. If you want a government solution and a top-down only, you're not going to get a solution to what's happening in our communities. We're going to have to do something that's way different, and it's going to take a lot of ownership from parents and caregivers and other persons in it. And so that's where we'll end today. I appreciate the time, and we'll be back. I'll schedule some more of these throughout the end of the year so we can cover some more ground. Thank you so much.
Just a second. If you would, maybe at the next council meeting, we could get an update on the progress on the parks.
Okay, we'll put that on.
We open the bids on the next council day.
Oh, there you get your update. Just for the record, Mr. Fowler asked if at the next council meeting there could be an update on the parks. This is park infrastructure. This is actual bricks and mortar playgrounds. And Ms. Corley's answer was, at the next council meeting, there will be an opening of bids on that. Is that correct? That morning.
Go for introduction and then final after.
All right, so on an introduction, I guess y'all wouldn't be able to talk unless it was put on the agenda just to talk, but.
But we'll know that morning how many responses we
Okay.
received.
Thank you so much.